This is some of my favorite material to teach. The material of how cancer speaks to us of a particular journey of spirit. I have really enjoyed working with clients with cancer because every illness is like an X on a treasure map saying, dig here for the buried treasure. Some treasures are bigger than others, and some X's are bigger than others. Some illnesses say to us, dig for that buried treasure now. And I must say that I personally really enjoy spending my time with people who are in that state of, all right, there is something I need to learn. There is something I need to discover. And given that my life may well be at stake, I put normal, conventional cautions and conservatisms to the winds and say, I want the truth. I want to know. Let's go there. So I would like to invite all of us to take that challenge, essentially. Whenever a client with cancer comes to me, I take the opportunity to assume that I have cancer also and do what it takes to heal it. Given that, if you are over 40, it's likely. It's a worthwhile exercise to say, okay, let's take this really personally. Where's that X? I may not know where the X is in me if I do not have a diagnosis, but let's go for the buried treasure now anyway. I am much more help to someone else if I'm not helping them. But if I'm right there in the boat rowing, because I will get the treasure also. The approach to illness of seeing it as an X on a treasure map with each different kind of buried treasure, depending on what kind of illness, what kind of patterns of disharmony, allows me in the treatment room to be spending my days with future sages. I really enjoy thinking in terms of what are the virtues that we are now directed to pursue in order to transform the illness. It is a much more uplifting thing to spend the day with future sages than with crumbling mortals. So, in order to speak, that you guys have, yes, most of you, it looks like you have the handout. I am more interesting than the handout, but at least it gives us a little bit of a structure. Yeah. I mentioned here that the American Cancer Society defines cancer as more than 100 different diseases, all characterized by irregular cell growth. Wikipedia says something very similar. The Chinese call it I do. I is a character that we saw Jean Mott speak of. He showed it, the rocks over the mountain. And do means toxin or malignancy, and we will look much more closely at that character. It is a water and wood illness, so we will be looking at pathologies of the water and wood element and virtues of the water and wood element taking place on the yuan level. So we will be looking at what does that mean. And it is not an entry-level disorder. There are going to be a lot of concepts that I'm going to have to introduce you to. So there may be a lot of time spent saying, what does this have to do with cancer? But cancer is complex. It is a collision of a number of different forces. And because it is not an entry-level disorder, you have to have a bunch of other things first. Like, I mean, we know this from other patterns of disharmony, like, for instance, internal wind. Nobody gets internal wind first. Before they had internal wind, they had either liver yolk rising, or maybe liver fire, or blood deficiency. Something else was already there before there could be liver wind. Cancers like this, only a bunch more steps. So we will have to look at all kinds of concepts that build up to it. The three most important being the concepts of mutation. What is mutation in Chinese medicine? The concept of malignancy. What is malignancy in Chinese medicine? And the concept of latency. Cancer is an illness with a very long latency period. What is latency? How does that work? And how do these three vectors come together? Mutation and mutability. Let's talk about mutability first. How much in you right now is mutable? As an individual, how much of you is mutable? And how much of you, that's just the way it is? See if you can feel in yourself, in who you are. Hopefully you know by now that I'm not, when I ask a question, I am not asking you to prepare to write a 250-word essay about it. What I'm really wanting you to do is get your subconscious, which is the most powerful part of the mind, starting to wonder, how much of me is mutable? And how much of me is fixed? Just the way it is, cannot change. To what degree are you unchangeable? And to what degree are you in fact mutable? Being alive to this in ourselves is a fundamental health awareness, especially when it comes to an illness in which mutation is one of the concerns. Generally speaking, there are levels of mutability in us. Our way level is the most mutable. Changes with the weather. The sun comes out, we start to sweat. The sun goes away and a wind comes, we start closing up. It's changing all the time. The yin level is also mutable, but more slowly. I have breakfast, and as I digest, my yin takes on the characteristics and flavors of breakfast, so I hope that it was a good one. I am also digesting not only physical food, but also life experience, which is food. We digest our life experience, and just as we digest our food and our food becomes us, we digest our life experience, and our life experience becomes us. We are what we eat, not just physically. And we are how we digested what we eat or experience. So on the yin level, there's everything that you are digesting from the last few days. It's mutable. It's changing. But not as quickly as the way level. Way level changes so that, ha! See, we just made a change. Big change on the way level. Your yin level's like, maybe she's crazy after all. Thought she might. But it moves a little more slowly than that way level change. Yeah. Yuan level, in most of Chinese medicine, we say that it doesn't change. We say this is the level of the Jing, the original blueprint. So it is. You will grow this tall. Your voice will be this deep. No deeper, not higher. You will lose your hair at this age. Your ankles will get thicker. All the things that are in will look more and more like their father, less and less like their mother. All the things that are written that most of Chinese medicine has said cannot be changed. Not until the time of Li Shizhen, which is pretty late, and the 8 extra meridians, at which time there came the new notion in Chinese medicine that we may not be able to change our Jing exactly, but we can get in and make a kind of shifting, like the shifting of tectonic plates in the earth. It's very similar to the degree of mobility in various joints. Fingers. Give your fingers a wiggle. That's like the way level. That level of mutability. Anything can change. It can go all. And then we have shoulder and hip joints, which is more like the yin level. And then we have, it's harder to do sitting down, but you can do it. Then we have your sacroiliac joint. To what extent can you actually shift those joints? Or your rib insertions, where your ribs insert into your spine or into your sternum. To what extent are those able to shift? We try, but it's actually not that easy. Also in our foot bones, there are places where we can shift. These are what is called the foundation joints. They change, but it's nothing like this. It's deep, for the most part involuntary without special practices. And the emphasis on these foundation joints is foundational. We don't want them to be all that mobile, right? Or we throw our back out, or we lose our belt, we lose our stability. So foundation joints, like the yuan level of our being, we actually count on not to change. On the other hand, if they're completely stiff and don't have a little bit of give, just a little bit of give, then we are also in some trouble. And this is what treatment on the 8 extra meridians is about. So we have these layers. I'd like to make them a little more experientially real. Find yourself another group of 3. You're going to be getting up and down all day. It's just how it goes. Anytime that I say, all right, find yourself a group of however many, the first thing you will do is make sure that you are not relating without first grounding. All kinds of weird, neurotic, codependent craziness comes from relating first. Ground first. Good. Find your connection to heaven also first. Check, are you breathing? Are you still found worthy to be a carrier medium with heaven? You, even with all that you have going on, find out, is it still the case that you are found worthy by the sky? Good. And I would like you to take a moment to feel in this village the way level of the village, the buzz of us, the electric. It can be a little bit electric and a kind of who are we on the way level? All the potentialities, all the reactions that are kind of involuntary, the ways that some people light us up a little and some people make us say, it looks like my uncle, or some people make us say, oh, what a nice shawl, or oh, all the little involuntary reactions.
It's a little uncomfortable to be aware of it. Way level is not a place where we normally have much awareness at all. It's our great habitual, our great involuntary. Let it be alive, electrical. Notice where there are places of stiffness. I better put on my impact armor. Strange things are happening. That's fine, just be aware of it, whether you're stiff and have your impact armor on the way level, or whether you are like a tree that can feel the breezes blowing, the breezes of village life. Are you awake and alive to the breezes of village life? The moment by moment, second by second changes in the wind. One of the people in the village suddenly calms down a little bit. Everybody feels that, whoa, look at that, the wind died down. Somebody else goes, oh my God, he really is like my uncle. Feel that go by too. Good. Nice way level. To feel the yin level, you might want to put your hands on your body. Put your hands like chest area or lower spine, wherever you feel comfortable, so that you can feel for the part of you that is inside of your skin. The way level is about, it's skin and a little beyond, and just a little bit in. But the yin level, for the yin level, put hands on chest will be good for me, because you can feel, where is the who that I am? How do you say that in French? I have no idea. That is inside the breastplate, inside the sternum. See if you can bring your consciousness inside. This is not about the wind rustling the leaves anymore. This is about the sap inside the tree. Sap that rises and falls, the blood moving through the vessels. The deeper, yes, inner ocean. See if you can feel the ocean of your inner world. Yin lives inside the skin. You have a whole world in there. It is a deep world. Like the ocean, there's the part of the ocean that's nearest to the surface. And then there's the deeper realms of the ocean. Sometimes it's useful to keep one hand on your heart and put the other one down in the low belly to help you be able to feel, oh my goodness, this ocean is very deep. On the surface of the ocean is everything that I have been digesting for the past few days. In the depths of the ocean is things that I have been digesting since I was a child. Things about which I'm still going, Good. Notice how very different this is than the way level. It's not the same. And notice, without leaving your own ocean, do not sacrifice your connection with your own ocean. But very, very gently notice that you are in a group of people, all of whom are not sacrificing their connection with their ocean. Go gently. If it's very exciting, sometimes you might pop up to the way level and go, oh wow, I'm with people and we're really deep. Come back in. You can have a way level also, but anchor in the yin and anchor in the experience of, I'm in a village. I'm with other humans. Let them know on a me-first basis, in our town, you are allowed to have a yin level. You are allowed to be anchored in the deep ocean of your inner life while you are with me. Maybe we will chat about something. Maybe we will say, oh, where are you from? But we will not need to lose touch with our inner ocean during that conversation. Even if we have a way level, we also have a yin, and we can be fully in touch with it. Good. Staying with that ocean and feeling especially for the depth of the ocean. Feeling especially for, as I sink deeper into this ocean, you may feel it literally deep lower in your body, or you may feel it further back in your body. Some people feel it more as though they're sitting at the bottom of the ocean in their own pelvis. Yeah. Some people feel it more as though their heart is leaning back against a tree. That happens to be their spine. So let your heart lean back against that tree. Whether you are sitting at the bottom of the ocean or not, you can lean back against that tree until you actually realize, actually, I am that tree. I am that spine. I am that great vertical and deep foundation. Beneath all of the waves of temporary mood or even long-term emotion, deeper than anything I feel or have ever felt, there is a sure foundation, a sense of, yes, I am this, and it has not changed since I was a little child. As you sit at the bottom of the ocean, you may feel a sense of memory. I was like this when I was very, very young. And when I am here at the bottom of the ocean, I realize that actually I have not changed at all. It is a very powerful thing to know, because it means that everything in your life that may have seemed to have hurt you, actually, there's a part of you, your blueprint, that is completely undamaged and unchanged. What your father did, what your mother didn't do, all the things that happened that seemed like trauma, underneath there's a read-only document. You want. Notice, without sacrificing your own awareness of that read-only document, of that blueprint that has not changed, will not change. When you are very, very old, it will be exactly the same. Notice how it is to be aware of this in yourself, and as an act of generosity, let the other members of your village know through your being, you know, in my presence, it's fine to admit that there is something about you that is deeper than emotion, deeper than reaction, deeper than what is happening now, and deeper than everything that has happened to you in your whole life. Deeper than what life has made of you. Something is here that has always been here. And feel how it is to be in a village of people, all of whom are admitting Yes, I am still who I was when I ran at the age of 3. And I am already who I will be when I'm very, very old. And all the time this has been here at the bottom of the ocean supporting me, about which I can say, I am. Good. Give nod of thanks to your village. And keep in mind that the most important part of any exercise is not snapping out of it. You will give nod of thanks and come back to your seat, but there is no obligation to snap out of it. Instead, you can integrate it and keep it as part of what you know for your whole life. I am Wei. I am Ying. I am Yuan. You can return to your seats. So we have these 3 levels. Jeffrey Yuan speaks of them as mood, emotion, and temperament. Wei level mood, or I sometimes call it reaction, is the thing about us that is most mutable of all. And to some degree, most unconscious. It's very reflexive. We don't say, gosh, it's hot here, guess I'll open my pores and start sweating. Nor do we have that level of control over the initial flinch that happens when somebody looks like our uncle and it was not the nice kind of uncle. It just happens. So we have that. In health, the Wei level is very free, is profoundly mutable, is able to change completely in an instant. To say, it's Uncle Larry, and then say, oh, it's not Uncle Larry. As fast as that, and it's over. It's done. The whole thing is done. We don't tend to have as much choice, though, about it. It happens, it happens. Emotion is a place where, Yin level, we actually do have quite a lot of free will. How we feel about something, we may sometimes say, I have a neighbor who's always saying, that's just the way I feel about it. It's just the way I feel about it. And he says this as though it were a monument of some kind. That's just the way I feel about it. Almost a tombstone, really. We actually, and we may not really always like to admit this, have a certain degree of volitional control about how we feel. Now, if we push it too far too fast, we become repressed or phony or go into denial. We can't, like the Wei level, just shift the way I feel. Think positive. Just tell yourself that she's part of the same universe as you are and you're all part of one down. It's really fine. However, we do on the Yin level have a certain amount of ability to say, I'm going to stop and breathe. I'm going to stop and ground. I'm going to do my Qigong practices. I'm going to look at things this way and see how that changes it. We can digest our experience and our emotion, including ways that we have felt about things for a very long time. They can change. Otherwise, therapists would be completely out of business. Although I don't wish to suggest that we need to hire a professional necessarily in order to be fully alive in the mutability of our Yin level and to be consciously fully embodying how mutable we actually are. So I'm asking you again not to write an essay about it, not to be clear particularly, but to get started on
on the inquiry of how mutable am I? Each of you, not me. How mutable am I on the yin level? How fluid or how fixed, as far as that's just how I feel about it? When that's how you feel about it, is that it? Done deal? All my emotions are like bricks, and I built a cathedral to myself. How mutable am I? Things change. They won't change like a lightning flash. They'll change the way that an ocean changes its tides. There can be sea change, profound change that does not come in an instant. How mutable am I in my yin level? Are there still monuments to things that happened years ago, such that whenever I think about Uncle Larry, there's a way I feel, and that's it? Whenever I think about my ex-wife, my ex-husband, that's how, whenever I think about my third grade teacher and what she said about my first report, whenever I think of, it's like, is that how it is? Is that just how it is? When I have emotions these days, not even from the past, is the way that I feel about it. That's it. Once I felt that way about it, that's how I feel about it. Hey, is it mutable? To what degree do I participate in the mutability of my yin? How do I participate in my own digestive process of life? Yeah. Yuan level is temperament. Yuan level, that part of us that's like that bedrock, part of us that's like we think we're leaning against the tree of our spine, but suddenly we are the tree of our spine. That's like the foundation joints. It's the least mutable part of us. There's some give here and there, and we will talk about that. But not a whole lot. A moose can be a very calm, generous, gentle moose, or it can be a very angry, nasty moose, or it can be a very nervous, traumatized moose. But you know what? It's a moose. Its way level is very mutable. It could change depending on whether it's hunting season. Its yin level is also mutable. It depends on what kind of childhood it had. It's a moose. Everything in each of us, it's why I love to think of this as the barnyard. Looking around, we look and we are with very different animals. And if somebody is of the nature of an eagle, you know what? They can be a pissy, annoyed eagle, or a paranoid, freaky eagle, or a peaceful, free, courageous eagle, but it's an eagle. And it is never going to turn into a stallion. It isn't. Doesn't matter how many magazines it reads. That makes it think that, well, this is very important. So often what we try to do is make our least mutable aspect more mutable and be something other than what we are. You're an eagle, you're fantastic. I mean, this is, or you're a dolphin, why are you trying to fly? This is so much of what goes on in the treatment room, is a kind of user's manual level of helping people acclimate to what is actually not mutable in you. There's so much illness that doesn't have to happen. If we come home to, you have been crying for years because you're not a good long distance swimmer, but you're a stag running through the woods. Try running through the woods. You might really love it. So it's not for nothing that I've talked about how a lot of what goes on is, you read in a magazine or you take a college course or you're born in a family where people manifesting certain aspects of the genome, and you got something from great-grandmother something, and Uncle, hopefully not from Uncle Larry. All right, I'll be mutable, maybe. I don't have an Uncle Larry, but you know, we all have the Uncle Larry. Yeah. So we often try to make who we are at our most fundamental level mutable. It's not. There is a glory just for you that comes from being what you are. In Chinese medicine, in terms of internal illnesses, there's many external generated kinds of things, but internal illness, you can be you or you can be ill. Very simple choice. If you are a horse, be a horse. And if you are a butterfly, be that butterfly. The fight against it is the main disaster. So we often ask the least mutable part of ourselves to be mutable. On the other hand, our way level, which is meant to be the most mutable, we get completely annoyed if there's a barricade and we can't drive to work the usual way. What? This is how I drive to work. This is how I do things. This is how I butter my toast. This is how I make my eggs. This is how I like to dress. This is the kind of social interaction that I want. And how come you're doing something? Hey! We often really prefer for our way level not to be mutable. We like to have customs and habits and to be able to remain unconscious and static on the way level. Meanwhile, we want to be something other than we actually are on the yuan level, and yin can get caught in between. So it is a very important thing right from the start to be looking at these different levels of mutability and look at where we get a little stubborn, where we were actually born for freedom, and where we are what we are. Surrender and stand in. So I invite you, as people who are joining me on the journey of learning from cancer, whether you have a cancer diagnosis or not, to begin looking at this in yourself, in your life. Where am I trying to be immutable? Like how I drive to work, or even how I like to say hello, how much small talk I prefer before we get into the heavy stuff. Whether I like standing up in groups of 3, my God. Versus where I'm trying to change something that it ain't budging and I could waste a lot of energy. This is, in fact, a lot of where illness comes from, is that incongruity between the way, the yang, and the yuan level. The moment I am trying to be something other than myself, I need to fund that in some way. I talk a lot about how an illness is funded. So if I'm going to be the best roommate you ever had, and I'm going out of my way to be the best roommate you ever had, but it's not actually authentic to me, where am I taking energy away from being what I am in order to be more like this? I've made you dinner and I've cleaned up your room and now I don't have enough chi to digest my own dinner. Or whatever else it is that we're doing. Again, trying it on in ourselves, because everything I'm teaching is completely obnoxious to look at in other people unless you've actually tried it on. Where am I trying to be something other than I am? And how am I funding that? Where am I creating deficiency? Where am I piling up excess? Doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. Because of trying to be something other than what I am. We can be responsive to our environment. I wrote down there in the notes that the grass in your lawn has around 22,000 genes in order to do what it needs to do to face life, work with all the different variables. So does a human with about 22,000 genes. However, human genes are maximally designed to be responsive to environmental cues, so that we can be exactly what we are. We're still humans. We have not become a blade of grass. We are what we are, and we are able to have an incredible variation and mutability of interaction with the environment. Whereas grass, doesn't matter how many times you mow it. It doesn't learn something from that and only grow this high. That, it does what it does. Yeah. So not to fear that being who you are will mean that you have to get stodgy. We have all these three. I'm making you have to translate the word stodgy. I look forward to knowing how that comes out. We are what we are, and we are exquisitely, mutably responsive to every moment of our life as what we are. Elizabeth Rochat de la Vallée, one of my dearest teachers, I think she teaches here sometimes, yes? Oh, what an amazing woman. Speaks a lot about the whole notion of destiny, which she says is very often misunderstood in Western culture, that people think of destiny as basically a way-level story. The little girl went for a walk in the woods and met the something or other, which turned out to be a wizard, and brought her to the castle where she had to pass 3 tests, and then she married the prince. That's not destiny in the Chinese sense. She says destiny very specifically has to do with what you are that you are under any circumstances, and the circumstances are here to bring it out. She says, your destiny will look different if your country is in a time of war than if your country is at a time of peace. Will look different, will not be different. Your destiny will look different if you were born in a rich family than if you were born in a poor family. Will look different, will not be different. The destiny of an oak tree is to be an oak tree every single day of its life, and to respond to every circumstance as that oak tree would respond. That destiny will look different in time of drought. It will look different in time of flood. It will look differently if that tree is struck by lightning and half of it burns. It will not be different. It will be the exact same destiny, to be completely true to the original blueprint and respond as an oak tree would respond, and not for one moment try to do what a Douglas fir would do. Same with our lives. It's not the external story, it's not the plot line that matters. For us to fulfill Ming, to fulfill our destiny, every single circumstance that we are in, drought, flood, war, peace, rich, poor, how to respond to it from what we actually are. This is fulfillment of destiny. This is our way. We get discouraged in this. We are given cues. I don't know what school is like in Canada. I know what it's like in the United States. There are many, many cues that come very, very early in life, and if they didn't come, if your family didn't get you first, many messages that come to us that say C+, D, maybe even F. And as children, we still are under the impression that what adults are trying to do is teach us what we need to learn in order to be viable organisms, to live and thrive in this world.
So school gives us a message very frequently that actually we are inadequate. Actually, we don't have what it takes because of that trusting state that we're in. From an ancient Chinese perspective, basically how we get here, the Big Dipper comes, takes a big scoop out of the Tao, plops it in skin. That's us. A chunk of Tao wrapped in Po. Which means that we are the other half of the Tao. We are a matching other half. There's the bit of the universe that's inside of us, and there's the rest of the universe. It's why it used to be that if you had a debt, you'd write on a rock and break the rock in half, and there'd be the debtor's half, like an IOU, the debtor's half and the person who loaned the money's half. We are like that with the universe. The sage holds the left tally, the sage holds the debtor's tally, realizes, I am the other half of right now. We are the people of right now. That we are born now, that we are in this era, that we are in this situation. It's not an accident. We are the other half of now. Who has a more perfect tool belt for being alive now than us? We come from it. We were scooped out of it and plopped in skin. We're a matching set. However, what the Tao calls an A is not necessarily the same as what the magazines that you are reading call an A, or what your third grade teacher would call an A, or unfortunately what our parents would call an A. Often, in raising my son, we worked very hard not to say, good boy, when what we meant was, convenient boy. So many of us took on good boy, good girl, bad boy, bad girl, when really what was being discussed was convenient boy or girl, or inconvenient boy or girl, and took it as a reflection upon our nature, our temperament, our design, and lost confidence. We did want to teach our son to be socially responsive, so we would say, thank you, rather than just good boy. So these are the scars and the wounds that we are working with in most illnesses. Most illnesses are a mismatch between the Wei and the Yin and the Yuan level. A very complex map of having tried to be something else, then having to fund that with something else, then having to fund that with something else. And the next thing you know, you have 12 different patterns of disharmony, and you say to yourself, where do I start? To undo the tangle of somebody trying very hard to be something other than they are, but still make all the ends meet. This is why I very much love practicing in the 5-element tradition, is that I'm not just always clearing away pathologies. I can go to the source points, the on points, which contain the original blueprint, and say, okay, never mind not never mind really, but just for a moment, never mind the mess that you have gotten yourself into. Let's drop through the way like we did in class. Let's drop through the Wei level. Let's drop through the Yin level. Let's drop to the Yuan level and ask your body and ask your being, in this situation, what would you do? How would you handle this? And hear that answer. So we can do this with needles. Tap into the blueprint that's there. It's not gone. It may have been wallpapered over with all kinds of crazy stuff, but it's always there accessible, just the same way that it was without needles in this room. It's right there. It's sitting at the bottom of the ocean. It's living in the marrow. And so we can always come back to that. So this is what most illness is, and this is an introduction to the concept of mutability in health.
Give yourself permission on all 3 levels. Give yourself permission as an act of generosity to everyone in the room to go ahead and allow yourself to be mutable in the most wonderful way. It's called healing. You cannot heal without being mutable. Allow yourself permission to experience true and healthy mutability and healing as an act of generosity, so that you can sound the note for everyone else in the room. If you have a healing today, please don't let me stand in your way. Let them know by sounding the note in your body. Having healing is not something to be ashamed of, not in this town. Yes. And both, letting everyone know from your body on a me first basis, if you need more time, if you need for it to come slowly, if you need for what is happening to be just like the beginning of a slow sea change, and it needs to take its time, let everyone in the room know by letting yourself know first. That's fine, there's no rush. Let everyone know on a me first basis. If your healing is not complete by the end of the day, it does not mean that you are a loser. And it does not mean that you lost the opportunity. It does not mean that you are behind in the race. It's fine. Take your pace. And let everyone in the room know through your own bodies, giving yourself permission first. Let everyone in the room know, if you change like the flash of lightning, if you change deeply and profoundly, if your mutability is the mutability of a deep healing that happens in this day, like a snake shedding its skin, the past is over, I'm done with that. That is also fine. Let the room know, so that anybody in this room who wants to change, perhaps beyond your recognition, but not beyond their own, because they'll be returning home. They will be returning to themselves. Let them know it's fine. Feel for your own willingness to endure the slight discomfort of unfamiliarity with yourself. There is so much healing that does not take place because the way level is stiff. What if I change and I'm not familiar to myself? Better not change. What if my healing makes it so that I have different habits and different desires? How inconvenient. Better not heal. Loosen, open for yourself so that you can hold it for this village. Not letting the little way level comfort zone get in the way of true healing. Forgive your neighbors in advance if they inconvenience you slightly by being different than they were before. On the surface. Underneath they will be even more, but they've already been. Give yourself that permission for huge transformation now. And permission to take as long as you wish. And somewhere between the two. We have different people moving at different rates. This is village life.